Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for standing by and welcome to second quarter 2021 Hello Group Inc. earnings conference call. At this time, all participants are in a listen-only mode. After the speaker's presentation, there will be a question and answer session. To ask a question during the session, you will need to press star one on your telephone. Please note this conference is being recorded today. I would now like to hand the conference over to your first speaker today, Ms. Ashley Jing, Head of Investor Relations. Thank you. Please go ahead, ma'am.
Thank you, operator. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for Hello Group's second quarter 2021 earnings conference call. The company's results were released earlier today and are available on the company's IR website. On the call today are Mr. Wang Yi, CEO of the company, Mr. Jonathan Zhang, CFO of the company. They will discuss the company's business operations and highlights, as well as the financials and guidance. They will both be available to answer your questions during the Q&A session that follows. Before I begin, I would like to remind you that this call may contain forward-looking statements made under the Safe Harbor provision of the Private Securities Litigation Reform Act of 1995. Such statements are based on management's current expectations and current market and operating conditions, and relate to events that involve known or unknown risks, uncertainties, and other factors, all of which are difficult to predict, and many of which are beyond the company's control, which may cause the company's actual results, performance, and achievements to differ materially from those in the forward-looking statements. Further information regarding this and other risks, uncertainties, and factors is included in the company's filings with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. The company does not undertake any obligation to update any forward-looking statements as a result of new information, future events, or otherwise, except as required under law. I will now pass the call to Mr. Wang. I will translate for him. Mr. Wang, please.
大家好，感谢参加今天的电话会。很高兴这是一个业绩表现扎实的季度，无论从财务还是年初公布的战略重点的执行情况来看，我们都取得良好的进展。接下来我为大家介绍一下二季度的具体情况。
Good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining our conference call today. I'm glad to be delivering a solid quarter with decent financial results and progress on the strategic priorities outlined at the beginning of the year. Now, I'll walk you through the specifics of our Q2 results.
首先简单介绍一下财务表现。2021年二季度总营收36.7亿人民币，同比下降5%，但环比上升6%。本季度调整后营业利润7.82亿人民币，对应营业利润率21%。MOMO主 App 总营收31.6亿人民币，同比降幅从一季度的10%持续收窄至二季度的6%，环比增长9%，不包含探探亏损。MOMO主 App 调整后营业利润8.23亿人民币，对应营业利润率26%。探探二季度总营收5.14亿人民币，同比下降1%，环比下降10%。本季度探探调整后净亏损4452万人民币，去年同期为7079万人民币。集团营收结构保持稳定，二季度呢收入达到直播收入规模的72%。
First of all, a brief overview of the financial performance. For the second quarter 2021, total revenue at the group level was 3.67 billion RMB, down 5% year-over-year, but up 6% quarter-over-quarter. Adjusted operating income for the quarter was 782 million RMB, representing a 21% profit margin. For the core business, total revenue was 3.16 billion RMB. The year-over-year decrease rate continued to narrow from 10% in Q1 to 6% in Q2. On a sequential basis, revenue from the core business was up 9%. Excluding Tantan's loss, adjusted operating income for the core MOMO was 823 million RMB, or a 26% profit margin. Tantan's total revenue came in 514 million RMB for the second quarter, down 1% year-over-year and 10% sequentially. Adjusted net loss from Tantan was 44.52 million RMB for the quarter, compared to 70.79 million RMB for the year-ago period. The revenue mix of the group remained healthy, with VAS representing 72% the size of live streaming.
接下来具体介绍一下本季度情况。我先介绍 MOMO 主 App 的运营和业务进展，稍后再讲探探。首先是用户增长， MOMO 主 App 二季度 ，MAU 1.156亿人，同比增长4%，环比微涨。电商企业在6月大幅增加渠道投入，导致2季度整体获客环境不太理想。鉴于渠道资源竞争激烈，出于 RR 考量，我们降低了营销投入，因此2季度 MAU 环比竞争较小。
Now, a deeper dive into the quarter. I'm going to focus on core MOMO's operational and business updates for now, and move on to Tantan later. First thing first, the growth of the core MOMO community. Core MOMO had 115.6 million monthly actives for the second quarter 2021, up 4% year-on-year, and a slight net add from Q1. The user acquisition environment was not ideal in Q2 due to aggressive channel marketing investments from e-commerce companies in June. We therefore lowered the marketing spend for ROI considerations, leading to the limited quarterly net adds to MAU.
尽管2季度在获客方面采取保守策略，但团队在改善平台基础社交体验方面取得了很好的进展，从而推动了平台存量用户活跃度的持续提升。每用户每日使用时长创疫情爆发以来新高，附近的人每日查看量达到2019年停工以来的最高水平，附近动态每日查看量也创历史新高。这些活跃度指标的改善表明，作为社交平台，MOMO主 App 的社交基础盘处于持续加固的状态。本季度付费用户数930万，去年同期为890万，付费用户数增长主要受 VAS 增长所推动。
During the second quarter, despite the conservative approach at the top of the funnel, our team made good progress within the funnel by improving the basic social experience on the platform. Per user time span reached its peak since the beginning of the pandemic. The number of daily impressions of the nearby people reached an all-time high since the homepage suspension in 2019. The number of daily impressions of the nearby posts also hit a new record high. The improvement in engagement matrix show that the fundamentals of core MOMO as a social platform continue to be solid. Number of paying users for the quarter was 9.3 million, compared to 8.9 million a year ago. The increase in the number of paying users was primarily driven by the growth of VAS business on the core.
在回顾本季度运营和财务成果之前，我想再重述一下团队年初以来致力于达成的战略目标。对于MOMO主 App， 今年的3个目标是：第一，利用有限的营销预算实现主站用户稳中求涨，并且取得比去年更好的 ROI。第二，推动业务重回增长轨道。第三，持续丰富品牌矩阵，拓宽MOMO和Tantan之外的业务边界。对于Tantan来说，今年唯一重要的战略目标是通过大幅提高营销效率及核心优惠体验，以推动用户规模稳定增长。接下来给大家回顾一下本季度我们为实现这些战略重点展开的工作。
Before I get into the operational and business review, I'd like to reiterate the strategic priorities the team has been pushing against since the beginning of the year. On the core MOMO side, the 3 goals for this year are: number 1, further grow the core user base with limited marketing budget and improved ROI versus last year. Number 2, bring the business back onto growth track. And number 3, continue to enrich our product portfolio and push the boundaries beyond MOMO and Tantan. On the Tantan side, the single most important goal for the year is to deliver solid user growth by substantially improving the marketing efficiency and the core dating experience. Now, let me walk you through what we've done in the past quarter in order to push forward to each of the priorities.
首先介绍一下我们在更好的服务用户需求、推动用户增长方面所取得的进展。过去几个月里，我们在帮助用户围绕附近的功能、建立关系和实现互动的方式上做出了重要改进。众所周知，附近的人和附近动态多年来是我们平台的标志性功能，在连接用户方面发挥了重要作用。过去几年里，附近的人和动态的分发逻辑由单一的地理位置维度演变成基于复杂的算法驱动下的多维度连接。在展现形式上，我们也逐渐加入更为丰富的个人资料页信息，以便用户在附近的人列表上可以更直观地找到感兴趣的元素。数据表示，这些改变在提升推荐效率和用户基础社交体验方面起到了非常积极的作用。2季度我们延续这一逻辑，并测试了新的推荐系统，用单卡全屏的推荐流形式替代附近的人列表。新的系统及展现形式可以将更全面的用户资料信息以更加突出的方式呈现给其他用户，这样浏览者可以从多方面了解并审视他们可能感兴趣的人，而不是快速而机械地向下滑动一长串用户头像列表。更重要的是， 新系统为推荐引擎提供了更大的发挥空间，可以将更多的曝光度分配给那些原来在拥挤的附近人列表里看起来并不抢眼，但实际上很可能是 the right one for you 的社交对象。这样的产品机制为我们降低信息集中度提供了更大的操作空间，可把小部分女性用户受到的关注度分散到更广泛的女性用户中，从而进一步提升交付回复率和互动质量。我们已经进行了2个月的 IP 测试，结果符合预期。我们将持续优化新版，并在3季度逐步放量。
First, regarding the progress we've made in better serving the user's need and driving user growth. During the past few months, we've taken a major step in renovating the way we help our users to discover new relationships and build interactions around our nearby features and functionalities. As many of you know, nearby people and posts are our signature features that have been around for many years. They have been playing a pivotal role in how we connect people. Over the past few years, nearby people and nearby posts had evolved from connecting people based on a single dimension of physical proximity to a much more sophisticated algorithm, incorporating a wide diversity of connecting elements. In terms of presentation, we've also been adding more personal information so that users could find more bonding elements right on the nearby people list. Data has shown that these changes have played very positive roles in driving the efficiency of recommendation and improving the basic social experience of MOMO's users. In Q2, we pushed further on that front by experimenting on a new recommendation system, which replaces the nearby people list with a sequence of full-screen single-user profile cards. The new system and display format allows more comprehensive user profile information to be presented to other viewers in a much more prominent way, so that they can focus on each individual from multiple aspects, rather than just quickly and in many cases carelessly scroll down the list with numerous profile pictures. More importantly, the new system also gives the recommendation engine more leverage to allocate higher exposure to the users who potentially can be a good match, but are not necessarily accessible or eye-catching enough on the crowded nearby people list. Such mechanism gives us much more room to decentralize the attentions received by a relatively small portion of female users to a wider range of female users, which can further improve the rate of response and the quality of interactions. We've been 2 months into the A/B testing, and the results are consistent with our expectation. We will continue to optimize this new version and gradually make it available to more users in Q3.
除了MOMO主 App 之外，团队也在丰富品牌矩阵方面取得了稳步发展。对对作为一款专注于下沉市场的视频交友产品，其 DAU 和付费用户数环比近3倍。SoChill 是我们面向海外市场的社交产品，2季度在用户增长方面也取得了不错的进展。这些新产品，比如赫兹、对对和 SoChill 等，目前还处于相对早期发展阶段。从单个产品来讲，它们可能不会发展成像MOMO或者探探那样的大众产品。但这些新产品有助于公司在特定的细分市场扩大市场份额，还可以在财务上为集团利润做出重要贡献。
In addition to the core MOMO, our team has also been making solid progress with enriching our brand portfolio for the company. 对对 a video matchmaking application targeting lower-tier cities, almost doubled its DAU and paying user from Q1. SoChill, a social product targeting overseas market, also made impressive progress in user growth during the second quarter. These new experiences, such as Hertz, 对对 and SoChill, are still at relatively early stage of development. On each individual basis, they may not grow up to be something as ubiquitous as MOMO or Tantan. However, it can help the company expand our market share in specific niche markets, and collectively can also make meaningful bottom line contribution to the group.
接下来介绍一下我们在推动现金流业务重回增长轨道这一战略重点上取得的进展。
Next, let me review the progress that we've made against our priorities of bringing the cash cow business back onto the growth track.
首先是直播业务，2季度MOMO主 App 直播业务收入18.8亿人民币，同比下降22%，环比增长10%，收入恢复略高于预期，同比降幅较上季度持续收窄。消费回暖好于预期，主要归功于3个因素：第一，整体内容生态的稳步改善； 第二，针对常委用户推出的产品和运营活动。第三，新的激励计划有效促进供给侧复苏。
Firstly, on live broadcasting. MOMO Core's live broadcasting revenue totaled 1.88 billion RMB for the second quarter, down 22% from the same period last year, up 10% from last quarter. Live streaming revenue came in better than our original expectation. The year-over-year decrease continued to narrow from the previous quarter. The better than expected spending recovery can be attributable to three factors. Number one, the steady improvement in the overall content ecosystem. Number two, introduction of long-tail-oriented features and operational events. And number three, revival of the supply side, boosted by the new incentive program.
接下来介绍一下增值业务。由于团队对产品创新和运营的不懈努力 ，VAS 在二季度保持了强劲势头，营收较去年同期增长38%，达到12.1亿人民币。聊天室依旧是 VAS 业务最重要的驱动因素。二季度团队在聊天室推出新玩法，以保持产品新鲜感和对用户的吸引力。例如，我们引入了8人麦体验，8位草根表演者同时连麦，用户可以通过赠送虚拟礼物的方式向表演者提出唱歌及剧本朗诵等表演需求。用户也可以指定剧本加入对戏或参与其他类型的游戏化玩法。该体验降低了常委用户享受高质量互动的进入门槛，随即受到广泛欢迎。
Now turning to VAS. Driven by the team's relentless focus on product innovation and operational efforts, value-added service maintained its strong momentum in Q2, growing 38% from the same period last year to 1.21 billion yuan. Chat room continued to be the most significant growth driver for VAS. In Q2, the team introduced some new experiences to the chat room to keep it fresh and engaging for the users. For example, we brought in 8人麦 experience, where 8 grassroots talents are concurrently available on open mic, and users can send virtual gifts to request performances ranging from singing to script reading. Users can always join the talents for roleplay or participate in other kinds of gamified activities as they wish. This experience lowered the entry barrier for long-tail users to enjoy high-quality interactions and gained immediate popularity.
二季度传统场景中的虚拟礼物，尤其是兴趣群组，在520恋爱大作战等运营活动推动下实现显著增长。产品侧，用户对新推出的定制化礼物反响积极，带动付费用户数和 ARPU 双性增长。
Virtual gifting within the traditional use case, in particular the interest group, grew meaningfully in Q2, driven by operational events such as the Last Battle, 520恋爱大作战. On the product side, the newly launched customized gifts were well received by users, driving growth in the number of paying users and ARPU.
除成熟场景外，缘分交友也持续表现良好。团队通过调整运营政策，为入门级红娘提供更好的培训机会。有效红娘数量大幅增长，带动流水持续提升。预计缘分交友下半年将持续加速增长，并对营收产生更加显著的贡献。
In addition to the established experiences, the matchmaking experience, 缘分交友, continues to gain traction. We have adjusted our operational policies to provide better training opportunities for the entry-level matchmakers. As a result, total number of quality matchmakers increased significantly, which in turn drives revenue growth from this experience. We expect the matchmaking experience to accelerate its growth and contribute in a more meaningful way heading into the second half of the year.
接下来很快介绍一下新业务。二季度独立新 App 收入增长势头强劲，是 VAS 增长贡献第二大的业务。收入增长主要得益于用户增长，而非 ARPU 的提升。团队在 ARPU 上一直采取较为节制的态度，关注于打造更好的用户体验，以提升 DAU 及留存率。下半年我们仍将延续这样的原则。
Now, briefly on the new endeavors. Revenue from the new apps showed robust growth momentum in Q2. Collectively, the new bucket was the second biggest incremental revenue contributor to the VAS top line. The organic revenue growth was driven by user base expansion instead of pulling up ARPU. Our team has been operating these apps at a controlled pace on the ARPU front, focusing primarily on building better user experience to drive the growth of DAU and retention ratio. Heading into the second half, such approach will continue to be guiding our execution in the new bucket.
总的来说，我很高兴 团队在执行这几项战略重点方面有突出的表现。MOMO主 App 作为社交平台的基本面在持续增强，与此同时，营收表现和收入结构也正朝着年初制定的目标稳步推进。这使我们有足够的信心认为，MOMO主 App 将持续作为一个健康而高产的现金流业务，为我们开辟新领域，为集团打造长期增长引擎提供坚实保障。
All in all, I'm glad to see that the team has been doing a good job in executing against all of our strategic priorities. The fundamentals of the core MOMO as a social platform continued strengthening. At the same time, the revenue performance and structure are seeing solid improvements towards the targets set at the beginning of the year. These give us the confidence that the core platform will continue to be a healthy and productive cash cow, which gives us important leverage to plow new ground and build longer-term drivers for the group.
现在才能看看，首先是用户趋势和整体财务表现。我们在5月中旬对探探的管理团队进行了调整，并开始投入各项具体工作。其后花费了一些时间锁定关键问题所在，重新设计后台系统并组建团队。过渡期造成的暂时的干扰性因素，导致2季度平均 DAU 承压。Q2 国内平均 DAU 略低于 Q1， 但是由于我们正在重启海外业务，亚洲其他市场的增长使整体 DAU 环比保持稳定。
Now turning to Tantan. Firstly, on user trend and overall financials. We made adjustments to Tantan's management team and started making deployments on various product and operational fronts in mid-May. It took us some time to lock down the key issues, rework the backend system, and put together a functioning team. The transition has caused some temporary disruptions, which had put some pressure on average DAU in the second quarter. As a result, average DAU in domestic market for Q2 was slightly lower than that for Q1. However, total DAU remained flattish on the sequential basis due to the growth in other markets in Asia as we resumed our efforts in overseas development.
截止2021年2季度末，探探付费用户数310万人，较上季度的350万人有所下降，环比减少40万人，主要由3个因素导致：一是5月初部分业务剥离导致付费用户数减少约20万人；二是近期新增用户中女性占比提升，对付费转化率造成负面影响，因为女性用户对增值服务付费的几率远低于男性；三是受团队调整因素影响，2季度平均 DAU 暂时回落，且将压力传导至付费用户。
Tantan's paying user count came in 3.1 million end of Q2 2021, down from 3.5 million from last quarter. The 400,000 net decrease was due to the combination of 3 factors. Number 1, the spin-off of certain business in May had around 200,000 negative impact on paying user count. Number 2, the improvement in the female percentage in new users acquired in the recent months adversely impacted paying conversion, as women are much less likely to pay for VAS in comparison with men. Number 3, the lower average DAU in Q2 caused by the transition and related operational disruptions were translated into the paying user count.
值得高兴的是，7月初以来，随着渠道获客策略逐渐起效 ，DAU 及付费用户数均已恢复增长趋势。
We're happy to see that both DAU and the number of paying users has started ramping up since early July as we move forward with our efforts in reforming the user acquisition approach.
接下来简要回顾下探探的财务表现。2021年2季度，探探总营收5.14亿人民币，同比下降1%，环比下降10%。VAS 收入环比下降6%至2.97亿人民币，主要由于付费用户减少，其原因刚刚已有所解释。另一方面，用户向更高价位的会员服务转移，推动 VAS 业务 ARPU 环比略有增长。直播收入环比下降14%至2.17亿人民币。直播业务 ARPU 下降的主要原因在于，作为约会功能的补充娱乐场景，我们在战略层面决定弱化对直播的运营安排。
Now, let me briefly review Tantan's financial performance. Total revenue for the second quarter was 514 million RMB, down 1% year-on-year and 10% quarter-on-quarter. VAS revenue decreased 6% sequentially to 297 million RMB. The sequential decrease was due to the decrease in paying user count, reason of which already explained in the previous part. ARPU of VAS, on the other hand, increased slightly, quarter-over-quarter as users shifted towards higher price membership service. Live streaming revenue decreased 14% sequentially to 217 million RMB. The decrease in ARPU was due to our strategic decision to de-emphasize live streaming as a supplementary experience to dating.
接下来进入我今天发言最重要的部分，我们将如何有效推动探探用户增长，并在未来全面释放其潜力。
Now, turning to the most important part of my speech today, our plan and respective execution on how to drive Tantan's user growth and unleash its full potential going forward.
探探在过去几年中经历了许多挑战。今年探探唯一重要的战略目标是通过大幅提高营销效率以及核心约会体验来实现用户的稳定增长。2季度团队调整后，我们梳理了重点领域，并制定了目标执行方案。方案的3个支柱因素包括：第一，提升营销效率；第二，打造更具吸引力的核心社交体验；第三，建立有效的推荐引擎。
Tantan encountered many challenges in the past couple of years. The single most important goal for Tantan this year is to deliver solid user growth by substantially improving the marketing efficiency and the core dating experience. We spent the rest of Q2 combing through the key areas of focus and coming up with an execution plan for that goal. There are 3 pillars supporting the plan. Number 1, improving marketing efficiency. Number 2, making the core dating experience more appealing. And number 3, having an effective recommendation engine.
营销方面，我们发现的一个关键问题在于来自渠道的新用户结构很不合理。过去较长一段时间，探探为了控制单位获客成本，提高付费本化，以实现季度营收和付费用户目标，在获客环节牺牲了部分对新用户质量的要求，这导致了用户结构逐渐恶化，性别比例失衡，且平均年龄迅速上升。均衡的用户结构对整体的用户体验以及约会生态长期健康发展至关重要。因此，在谈论用户增长前，我们必须先解决新注册用户的结构问题。我把这作为团队2季度的工作重点。很高兴地看到，团队过去几个月取得了初步但都有成效的进展。新增女比从去年的20%提升到8月的45%。新增女性用户平均年龄较团队调整前降低了7岁。但是由于女性及年轻用户的获客成本相对较贵，导致6月平均获客成本上升到较高水平。3季度我们的主要目标是在当前较好的用户结构基础上，通过不断优化广告素材和数据系统，降低单位获客成本，直到成本优化调整到位后，再增加渠道投入进行大规模扩量。3季度目前为止，我们一直在朝着既定目标顺利推进。7月以来，国内 DAU 已进入逐步健康增长的轨道。
On the marketing front, one of the key broken windows we've identified lies in the new user structure. What happened here was that in order to control the unit acquisition cost and improving paying conversion to meet quarterly numbers in revenue and paying user count, Tantan had been compromising the quality of new users acquired through channels. It had led to a gradual deterioration in the user structure, evidenced by the proportional gender ratio and a rapidly increasing average age of the new users. Having a balanced demographics is crucial for user experience and the long-term healthiness of the dating ecosystem. Therefore, we have to fix the structure in new registration before we can even talk about user growth. I made it the key focus for the team in Q2. I'm glad to see that we've had some initial but fairly impressive progress during the past few months. Female ratios in the newly acquired users increased to 45% in August from around 20% last year. The average age of new female users has dropped 7 years from the period before we took over. However, because it's relatively expensive to acquire female and younger users, the average user acquisition cost went up to a pretty high level during June. Our main goal in Q3 is to bring down the unit acquisition costs based on the current user structure. Of course, this goal should be achieved through continuous optimization of ad material and data management systems. After we reach a reasonable level of the cost front, we will increase the marketing spend to drive top-of-the-funnel activities. So far into Q3, we've been progressing well against that goal, and the domestic DAU count also been seeing gradual and healthy ramp-up since July.
营销方面，另一件有助于促进整体用户增长的事是品牌广告。我们相信，如果我们能够把探探的核心价值传达给需要探探服务的潜在用户群体，作为一个年轻品牌， 探探在提升用户认知度和品牌价值方面还有大幅提升的空间。我们会在产品改版到位后着手规划品牌投放方案。
Another thing on the marketing front that can contribute to overall user growth is brand advertising. We believe that Tantan, as a relatively young brand, has huge opportunity to improve user awareness and enhance brand equity if we can spread the core value of Tantan to those who potentially need our service. We will start looking at branding options once we complete our next major product upgrade.
我们需要改进的第二个方面是提升核心社交体验。二季度产品团队对探探的产品体验和用户行为进行了详细的梳理和深入的研究。对此，我们有2点发现：第一，亚洲女性社交主动性差，有相当一部分女性用户在探探的滑动行为非常有限，有的甚至没有任何右滑，导致大量女用户在滑动匹配机制下不易于得到匹配，也无法实现互动，这是女用户留存显著低于男性的主要原因。第二，新增中有30%的人被探探定义为 fake 用户。fake 用户是指那些由于头像照不达标导致无法进入滑动系统匹配的用户，无法得到任何匹配和互动，导致 fake 用户会从平台上快速流失。
The second area we need to improve is to enhance the core dating experience. In the second quarter, our product team conducted a thorough walkthrough of Tantan's product experience and made an in-depth study of user behavior. The study brought 2 things to our attention. Number 1, Asian women tend to be quite passive when it comes to dating. For example, a considerable portion of female users on Tantan right swipe in an extremely selective way, and some may not right swipe at all, resulting in a large number of female users getting no matches or interactions based on the current product mechanism. This is one of the key reasons why female users' retention ratio is significantly lower than that of men on Tantan. And the second issue is about 30% of newly acquired users are marked as fake users by Tantan. Fake users refers to those who fail to provide qualified profile photo and are therefore denied full access to the swipe and match system. The retention of fake users tends to be extremely low because of their inability to get any matches or interactions.
对于产品团队来说，当前最亟待解决的是提升女性及 fake 用户的产品体验，以便提升该群体的留存。由于当前的产品机制对于这两类用户群体效果欠佳，我们意识到需要在产品层面进行深入创新，而不是简单的对当前的滑动匹配机制进行微调或者修补。我们要为用户提供当前产品机制外的补充连接维度，借助看脸之外的连接元素，激发那些内向或者慢热的用户去了解彼此，并最终基于他们真实的个人信息建立真实的线下关系。各位将在下次产品升级中看到我们针对这个问题的首次尝试。
The most important near-term priority for our product team is to improve female user and fake users' experience so that we can better retain them. Because the current product mechanism tends to be less effective for these 2 groups of users, we realize that we need to get more innovative than just making minor tweaks or adding patches to the current swipe and match system. Instead, we need to build supplementary experience around it, providing additional ways for people to bond. The goal is that through these additional, more subtle bonding elements, more introverted, slow-to-act users can get attracted to each other and gradually open up to others with their real identities, and ultimately build offline relationships based on authentic information. You will see our first step into this problem unfolding at our next upgrade.
为了推动用户增长，我们需要改进的第3个方面是推荐算法。在开放社交领域耕耘的10多年里，我认为让一个社交产品脱颖而出的核心在于其是否具备精准的个性化推荐能力。换句话说，用户需要感受到这是一个了解他们，或者至少努力试图了解他们需要寻找什么样对象的产品。显然，目前探探在这方面做得还不够到位。我们正在搭建合适的团队，以便在这方面加快推进步伐。这是我们致力于尽快解决的一个问题。
The third area we need to improve in order to drive user growth is the recommendation algorithm. Being in the open social space for more than 10 years, I believe the core thing that makes a social product stand out is its ability to make its recommendation more relevant. Users need to feel that this is a product that understands, or at least is trying to understand, what kind of people they're looking for. Obviously, Tantan is not doing a good enough job in this area. We are getting the right team aboard so we can move faster on that front. This is a roadblock that we are determined to crack down as soon as possible.
除了中国市场的机会，我们也在为重启探探海外业务进行相应的准备。我们相信，通过对海外华人和东南亚市场的渗透，会将业务延伸至东亚以及东中及北非市场。探探在海外仍拥有广阔的增长空间。我们的团队在社交产品创新、会员业务以及非会员增值服务方面具有丰富的经验。先有团队像我们这样具备3个领域的综合实力。我们相信，要在亚洲市场打造一个规模化并最终实现盈利的社交平台，这3方面的经验至关重要。这也是我们未来发展的一项主要竞争优势。我们希望看到，在亚洲，探探将成为人们建立浪漫关系中不可或缺的一部分。这也是我们增长战略中极为重要的组成部分。
Beyond the China opportunities, we are also getting prepared to resume the pursuit of Tantan's overseas expansion. We believe there is still a lot of growth opportunity by penetrating deeper into overseas Chinese, Southeast Asia, as well as expanding our reach to East Asia and MENA countries. Our team has rich experience in social product innovation, membership business, and non-membership value-added services. Very few teams have as comprehensive experience on all those 3 fronts as we do. We believe that in Asia, such experience is very crucial in building up a scalable social platform that can ultimately reap profit. This is an important competitive advantage that we are going to leverage. We would like to see Tantan becoming an indispensable part of people's dating life in Asia. It is a very important constituent of our growth strategy for the company.
以上是本次电话会我想和大家分享的内容。接下来，请 Jonathan 为大家介绍具体的财务情况。
These are the things I'd like to cover on this call. Now, let me pass the call over to Mr. Jonathan Zhang for financial review. John, please.
Thanks. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining our conference call today. Now, let me briefly take you through the financial review. Total revenue for the second quarter 2021 was 3.67 billion RMB, down 5% year-on-year, up 6% quarter-over-quarter. Non-GAAP net income attributable to MOMO was 551 million RMB compared to 670 million RMB from the same period of 2020, or an 18% decrease year-over-year. Looking into the key revenue items for the quarter. First, on live broadcasting. Total revenue from live broadcasting business for the second quarter 2021 was 2.1 billion RMB, down 19% from the same period last year, up 7% from last quarter. Core MOMO's live broadcasting revenue totaled 1.88 billion for the second quarter, down 22% from the same period last year, but up 10% from last quarter. The year-over-year decrease caused by the structural reform in late August last year continued to narrow down from Q1. Tantan's live broadcasting revenue amounted 416.5 million RMB, down 14% from previous quarter. The sequential decrease was due to our strategic decision to de-emphasize live streaming as a supplementary experience to dating, as well as overall decrease in paying users on Tantan platform. Moving on to VAS. Revenue from value-added service reached 1.51 billion RMB, up 25% year-on-year, 4% quarter-over-quarter. Revenue from VAS, excluding 297 million RMB from Tantan, reached 1.21 billion RMB in the second quarter of 2021, a 38% increase year-on-year, 6% increase sequentially. The solid performance of MOMO's core VAS business was primarily driven by the team's focus on product innovation and operational efforts, as Wang Li mentioned. Let me briefly review the cost and expenses items for the quarter. Our non-GAAP cost of revenue for the second quarter of 2021 was 2.05 billion RMB compared to 2.01 billion for the same period last year. The non-GAAP cost of revenue as a percentage of total revenue was 55.8%, an increase from 52.1% from Q2 2020. Non-GAAP gross profit margin for the quarter was down 3.7% from a year ago. The decrease was attributed to the following factors. Number one, higher payout ratio from core MOMO's live broadcasting business on a year-over-year basis. The lower gross margin from Tantan as its live broadcasting business has become sizable compared to a year ago. Number three, certain fixed nature cost items such as headcount impacted the gross margin negatively as total revenue declined, and this item represents a higher percentage of total revenue. On a sequential basis, the non-GAAP gross margin was down by 0.6%. Gross margin for MOMO Core remained flattish compared to the previous quarter. The slight decrease in the group's non-GAAP gross margin was due to 2% GP margin decline on Tantan, as certain fixed costs having a negative impact on Tantan's gross margin due to the sequential decrease in revenue. It's worth mentioning here, our wholly owned subsidiaries, Cool Media and MOMO Pictures, produced a variety show, The Honorable Chef, and a film, Like a Friend, respectively. A small portion of the related product cost was recorded in Q2, and the vast majority of the cost is going to be recognized in Q3. We expect the cost incurred in connection with this media product productions to have a close to 2% drag on the GP margin in Q3. Non-GAAP R&D expenses for the second quarter was 232.9 million RMB compared to 226.6 million RMB for the same period last year, representing 6.3% and 5.9% of total revenue respectively. The increase mainly due to the increase in employee salary and social welfare. We ended the quarter with 2,092 total employees, of which 617 are from Tantan. R&D personnel as a percentage of total employees for the group was 57% compared to 60% Q2 last year. Non-GAAP sales marketing expenses for the second quarter was 619.5 million RMB, or 16.9% of total revenue, compared to 590.7 million RMB, or 15.3% of total revenue for the same period last year. The year-over-year increase in sales marketing expense, both in terms of RMB amount and in terms of as a percentage of the total revenue, was primarily due to higher marketing spending in association with our live streaming gala party, which was delayed from Q1 to Q2 due to the pandemic. The increase was partially offset by lower user acquisition investment for Tantan during the management transition period, while our team focused on fixing the structural issues on Tantan's user acquisition system. Non-GAAP G&A expenses was 78.8 million RMB for the second quarter 2021, compared to 91.9 million RMB for the same quarter last year, representing 2.1% and 2.4% of total net revenue respectively. The decrease was largely due to a recovery of bad debt previously written off. Non-GAAP operating income was 781.9 million RMB, as a decrease of 24.5% from Q2 2020, representing 21.3% non-GAAP operating margin for the quarter, down 5.5% from the same period last year. Non-GAAP OPEX as a percentage of total revenue was 25.4%, an increase of 23.5% from Q2 2020. The increase was mainly due to negative operating leverage as a result of a decrease in revenue. Now briefly on income tax expenses. The company repatriated 1.3 billion RMB from our WFOE in China to our offshore entity in Q2 in order to replenish our US dollar funding. In accordance with respective taxation law of China, the company paid 10% or 130 million RMB withholding tax to Chinese tax authorities. This tax payment was recorded as income tax expenses for the company for the second quarter 2021. Excluding this withholding tax payment, our non-GAAP effective tax rate was around 20% in Q2 2021. Turning to the balance sheet and cash flow items. As of June 30, 2021, our cash equivalents, short-term deposits, long-term deposits, restricted cash, and long-term restricted cash totaled 15.45 billion RMB compared to 16.48 billion RMB as of December 31st, 2020. In Q2, we paid an equivalent of 853 million RMB cash dividends to our shareholders. Excluding an equivalent of 678.2 million RMB cash payment to Tantan founders to redeem vested share options upon their departures in Q2. The net cash provided by operating activities in the second quarter was 510.4 million RMB. Lastly, on business outlook, we estimated our third quarter revenue to come in the range from 3.65 billion RMB to 3.75 billion RMB, representing a decrease of 3.1% to 0.4% year-on-year, or a decrease of 0.6% to an increase of 2.1% quarter-over-quarter. For the third quarter 2021, we expect the total revenue from core MOMO to turn positive on an increase of mid-single digit percentage year-on-year, or up low single digit percentage sequentially. On the Tantan side, we expect the user recovery to drive organic revenue growth. But as Wang Li mentioned earlier, in pursuit to our strategic goal in user growth, we are planning to remove some of the extremely short-term oriented efforts to de-emphasize live streaming to take care of our user experience and the dating ecosystem. We expect our pool to decrease while we step back in terms of how deep we monetize Tantan. Overall, we expect Tantan revenue in Q3 a slight downtick on a sequential basis. Please be mindful that This forecast represents the company's current and preliminary view on the market and operational conditions, which are subject to change. That concluded our prepared remarks. With that, let me turn the call back to Kathy to start Q&A. Kathy, please.
Yeah, just a quick reminder before Q&A. For those who can speak Chinese, please ask your questions in Chinese first, followed by English translation by yourself. And also, please limit the number of questions to two at maximum so that more people get the opportunity to ask questions. Operator, ready for questions.
Thank you. As a reminder, to ask a question, you will need to press star 1 on your telephone. To withdraw a question, please press the pound or hash key. Once again, to ask a question, it's star 1 on your telephone. The first question comes from the line of Thomas Chong from Jefferies. Please go ahead.
晚上好，谢谢管理层介绍我的提问。我有2个问题，第一个问题是关于探探的，想问一下管理层可不可以分享一下呢？探探的用户数的一个 KPI， 还有就是在下半年的话呢，从探探的收入端还有盈利端的话呢，我们的 KPI 可以跟大家分享一下吗？然后第二个问题呢是关于 Core MOMO 那边的，就是想看一下呢，我们在下半年对 Core MOMO 的用户数还有贡献呢，我们的战略，尤其是看Core MOMO 的 Live Streaming 呢的 outlook 可以分享一下吗？还有就是在未来几年我们在WAS 那边的战略。Thanks management for taking my questions. I have 2 questions. The first question is on Tantan. Can management comment about Tantan's user growth target? And also in the second half, can management share about the Tantan revenue as well as earnings expectation? My second question is on Core MOMO. Can management share any updates about the user and the monetization trend as we come to the second half? In particular, on the live streaming side, can management share about the outlook as well as the strategies for VAS in the next couple of years? Thank you.
好，谢谢。关于第一个问题，我在6月初的业绩会上提出了探探用户年底较6月增长20%到35%的预期，那这个目标不会变。而且从7月开始，我们已经进入了向这个目标稳步前进的轨道。
I remember that on our June earnings conference call, I said that we expected Tantan's user base to grow from 20 to 35% by the end of the year. That's against the June number. That expectation remains unchanged. And as you guys can see, since July, we've already gotten onto the right track to achieve that target at a steady pace.
至于收入方面，那像我上次讲的，今年唯一重要的目标是用户增长和产品体验，所有其他的目标都要服务和服从于这个目标。所以下半年我们没有制定硬性的收入目标，但有2个因素会影响到收入。那一是用户增长，这会对收入产生推动作用。考虑到用户到会员收入的一个递延作用呢，我觉得 Q4 收入的提升作用会比较明显。那么第2个因素是 Q3 为了用户体验而采取的一些收入回撤措施，包括下线一些拉升付费转化的措施和弱化直播。那这个工作我们正在逐步进行当中。
On the revenue side, like I said before, the single most important goal for this year for Tantan team is to grow the users and improve product experience. Anything else should be subservient to that key goal. So we actually haven't set a rigid revenue target for the second half of the year, but I can see 2 things happening, down the path, which should have different sorts of impact on revenue. One is user growth. That is obviously going to have a positive effect on revenues. And given that there is a time lag between user growth and the translation into membership revenue, I feel that positive impact should be felt in a bigger way in Q4 this year. And the second factor is that starting from
Q3, we are already trying to take a few steps back in terms of how deep we monetize in order to protect user experience. That would involve unwinding some of the extremely short-term oriented measures to drive up the paying conversion, and that would also involve continuing to de-emphasize live streaming in terms of product design. That will be an ongoing process as we move deeper into the year.
对于探探商业化呢，我们有着更加长期的想法。第一呢，我们毫不怀疑探探在商业化方面的潜力。以我们对于探探用户消费意愿和能力的了解，我认为探探的 ARPU 应该在陌陌之上。但在商业化手段方面，我们需要突破会员的模式，采用会员加package use 两条腿走路的方式，做好用户的分层，这才是适合亚洲文化的商业化方式，并且能够充分的释放探探用户的商业化价值。下半年开始呢，我们会进行这方面的测试，也探索会员之外的这个增值服务模式，会成为未来一段时间我们在营收方面的一个重点。
And actually for Tantan's monetization, I have some longer term thoughts that may be worth sharing here. Number one is we absolutely have no doubt in the long-term monetization potential of Tantan. Based on our understanding of the users, Tantan's users actually have stronger willingness as well as ability to pay for the dating service. That's why I believe that our ARPU of Tantan should actually be higher than Momo's. But in terms of monetization approach, we need to break through the singular membership model and try to add in the second pillar. And that second pillar, in my opinion, should be the pay-per-use model. And by having that dual pillar sort of structure, we can take better advantage of the user segmentation. That should be the right kind of monetization approach that fit better into the Asian culture. That is also, the right kind of monetization approach that could fully unleash Tantan's monetization value. So starting from the second half of the year, we're going to start some product experiments on that front, continuing to explore the non-value-added service, non-membership value-added service is going to be the most important priority that we have on the revenue side in the near future.
然后利用的情况呢，请Jonathan介绍一下。
And now here's Jonathan to talk about the bottom line for Tantan in the second half.
Yeah. As I remember, during the last earnings conference call, I provided an update on the revised outlook for the Tantan's bottom line. Actually, that picture remains unchanged, still the same. Let me just repeat it again. Because we are going to focus on Tantan's user growth, particularly during the second half of the year. With a lowered revenue target, we're going to continue to invest in the paid marketing channels to acquire new users to help us to achieve our targeted BAU with the growth target, as Wang Li just mentioned, 20 to 35% growth annually. So with that, we expect the Tantan's net loss will widen sequentially, particularly starting from Q3 and Q4. The total annual net loss probably will be in the range of 350 million RMB to 450 million RMB. So that still it's our target right now.
然后关于第二个问题，那陌陌主 app 不管是用户还是收入呢，都是一个稳中求涨的状态。那直播从年初开始就已经开始进入到一个很稳定恢复的状态了。那么未来增长呢，会主要靠 VAS 推动。那么驱动力呢，主要来自于以下几个方面。
For the MOMO core business, I think what we are pursuing here is moderate growth on top of a stable and healthy user base. That principle applies to both user growth and revenue growth. For live streaming, I think it's pretty clear that since the beginning of the year, it's already in a state of steady recovery stage. And the future growth of the company will be primarily driven by the value-added services, and the growth will be coming from several key areas.
那第一是音视频社交和娱乐的持续发展，那这方面主站的聊天室和视频交友还有增长空间。
The first area of growth is the continuous development of the audio/video social entertainment category. On that front, the chat room experience as well as the video matchmaking experience on the core are still seeing plenty of growth opportunities.
那第二是这个互动礼物的持续创新。那么过去我们认为虚拟礼物靠这种皮肤的创新带来的收益不会很大，但过去几个季度互动礼物推陈出新带来的 VAS 营收增量呢非常可观。那我们认为这个部分呢还会有可持续挖掘的空间。
The second area of growth is going to be the continuous innovation on the interactive gifts. In the past, we had not focused too much on being inventive on the skins of the virtual gifts themselves because we didn't realize that there could be a lot of revenue potential in doing so. But actually, during the past few quarters, we've been seeing pretty considerable incremental revenue coming from the introduction of new creative interactive gifts. So I think there's going to be a lot of potential that we can cultivate in this area.
那么第三是这个站外新的 App 持续的用户增长。总体来看，新业务下半年仍会有不错的用户和营收的增长。那明年呢，我们希望会有更多的站外新 App 开始有所贡献。
And thirdly, I think another key area of growth will be the continuous user growth from the standalone new applications that we're working on. The new bucket as a whole are still going to see pretty decent growth, both in terms of users and in terms of revenues. Next year, we're hoping that we could see more of these standalone new apps coming into fruition.
那至于下半年的预期方面呢，我们会按照之前的目标执行，也就是下半年 MOMO Core 的营收同比回到正增长的轨道。在我们这个3季度的指引里面呢，MOMO Core 大概同比是5%左右的增长。那么4季度我们希望在同比增长方面再上一个台阶，而且未来的收入结构越来越向扁平化的 VAS 倾斜。
With regards to the revenue expectation for the second half, we had a previous target that that the revenue on the MOMO Core is going to turn YOY positive in the second half. I think in Q3 we're guiding core Momo's revenue to grow 5% year over year. In the fourth quarter, we're looking to further accelerate the YOY growth rate from that level. More importantly, I think revenue structure-wise, we're going to be increasingly leaning toward the value-added services, which is much more flattish in terms of structure. I hope that addressed all of your questions, Thomas. With that, operator, we're ready for next.
Thank you. The next question comes from the line of Tian Hao from TH Capital. Please go ahead.
管理层啊，晚上好。我提一个问题，我注意到最近公司的名字从陌陌改成那个 Hello Group， 我不知道就是这个名字更改后面有什么想法，是不是对公司的战略上有一些新的想法？然后就是陌陌，对，陌陌已经存在很久了，那么在未来的时候。这个我想知道说公司觉得它的新的成长点在哪里？我自己翻译一下吧。I noticed that recently the company's name has been changed from MOMO to Hello Group. I would like to know more about the thinking behind the change, and also if company can share any strategic thinking behind the name change. That's number one. Number two is MOMO has been in the market for a long time. So what is the new growth driver the management think can be in the next several years to drive companies to drive MOMO's growth? Thank you.
谢谢。那我们这个集团的名字从陌陌更改为 Hello， 主要是反映了这个公司层面多 App 产品组合的一个战略。那陌陌作为一个公司呢，也已经10岁了吧？那从一个单一功能的 App 发展出了陌陌、探探2个大型的社交平台。那么同时呢，也围绕着社交和娱乐，我们也培育出了其他几款独立的 App。那如果说陌陌 App 是公司的第一级引擎，那么探探和其他新业务将会是公司的第2和第3级引擎。那么未来10年增长呢，将会由这3级引擎共同来推动。那 Hello 这个名字呢，也是为了更好的承载公司多元化发展的一个战略。
The name change from MOMO to Hello Group is a reflection of our multi-application product portfolio approach. MOMO as a company is already 10 years old, and we've developed from a single function application to a company that has MOMO and Tantan, these two pretty big social platforms. At the same time, revolving around the social and entertainment services, we've also incubated a few other standalone applications. So if you view the MOMO application as the first growth engine of the company, and Tantan is the second, and the new stuff that we're working on are going to be the third engine. The growth of the company in the coming decade will be driven by these 3 different engines in a concerted way. So going back to the reason why we need this new name, I think we need this new company name as a carrier for the company's strategy to continue to diversify into new products and services.
那么具体来说的话，未来3年最大也是确定性最高的增长点肯定是探探。但是除了陌陌和探探以外呢，我们的产品矩阵里面也会有其他的一些品牌，比如说赫兹贝贝。那这些产品就单一体量而言的话，未必会很大但仍然可以有客观的利润贡献那么未来3到5年呢，我们希望培育出几个类似这样的一个产品，服务于更多圈层的人群。
More specifically, I think in the coming 3 years, the biggest and also the most definitive growth opportunity is definitely going to be Tantan. Other than MOMO and Tantan, now within our product portfolio, we also have some other newer brands such as Hertz, Duidui. Things like Hertz and Duidui, these applications on individual basis may not, like I said, has the potential to grow up to be something as big as Tantan, as ubiquitous as Tantan is, but collectively they can still make sizable contribution to the bottom line of the company. We're hoping that in the coming 3 to 5 years, we could incubate more of such applications in order to cover a broader range of people on the user spectrum.
那么另外呢，我也想借此机会说一些稍微长远一点的一些想法。在这个社交娱乐相关的领域呢，那未来10年一定还有孕育这种大节有体量产品的机会。这种机会呢，可能是技术变革推动的，也可能是用户的这个使用习惯的改变所推动的。那比如像现在这样的 AR、VR 以及智能硬件领域的技术发展，就必然会带来未来社交平台的巨大变革。那么对于这样的变化我们必须保持足够的敏锐度，并且全力的去把握这样的机会。那我们的团队在社交领域方面的这个产品创新能力，还有并购的眼光和魄力，是经过时间检验的。同时呢，公司拥有巨额的净现金以及强大的持续现金流。那我们呢也会通过这个自研或者投资并购吧，在追求新机会方面持续的开拓。对此呢，我们既充满信心，也有足够的耐心。
Lastly, I wanted to take this opportunity to share some of the longer-term thinking that I have on the strategic side. I think that in the social and entertainment space, the coming decade will inevitably be seeing the emergence of new ubiquitous platforms or products that can build huge DAU base. Such kind of opportunity could either be driven technological advances or it be driven by the behavioral changes in user behavior. For example, we are now seeing some pretty big stuff happening in AR, VR, smart devices space. The technological advances in this space will inevitably bring phenomenal changes in terms of how people socialize in the future. And this is the kind of change, that opportunity that we need to make sure we stay vigilant about and get prepared for, so that when time comes, we have the capability of seizing these opportunities to grow to be something bigger. Our team has proven capabilities of product innovation in the social space. And our vision and decisiveness to seize the right kind of investment opportunity to grow the business is also proven by time. At the same time, the company is also sitting on huge cash balance and very strong operating cash flow. So I think investors can rest assured that we will continue to push very hard into new areas and growth opportunities, either via self-development or through investment opportunities. This is the area where we have full confidence as well as enough tenacity to carry through. Operator, I think we have time for one last question, if there are still other people in the queue.
Certainly. The next question comes from the line of Daniel Chen from JP Morgan. Please go ahead.
晚上好，管理层啊，谢谢接受我的问题啊。我的问题是关于那个直播行业的监管的，就是我们看到去年和今年这个直播行业是有一些新的监管政策的，然后最新是这个7月份针对网络表演机构想问一下应该怎么看这个直播行业的未来的监管环境，然后会不会对我们的直播收入有什么影响？我自己翻译一下。Thanks management for taking my question. My question is on the regulatory environment of live streaming industry in China. So we have been seeing that since last year there has been several new regulation on the live streaming industry. So the latest one is the July one targeting the online live streaming agencies. So want to know how should we look at the regulatory environment for the live streaming industry in the future, and what's the implication to our live streaming revenue trend? Thank you.
谢谢。那随着中国的这个移动互联网变得越来越重要，那政策监管肯定会越来越重视行业的规范、有序的发展。这对我们是件好事，因为这有助于公平竞争，那保证整个行业更健康的向前发展。那我们呢也会一如既往的配合各个监管部门的工作。
Thank you for your question. I think as China's mobile internet space become increasingly important, it's inevitable that the policymakers and regulators are going to take it more and more seriously to make sure that the industry develops in a orderly and regulated fashion. That's in a sense a very good thing for us because it's leveling the playing field, and it's also going to make sure that the whole space moves forward in a healthy environment. So as always, we are going to be cooperating with the various regulatory bodies to make sure that we stay in full compliance.
那么对于这个直播行业的政策变化，那事实上从2020年初开始，我们就一直保持着密切的关注。那大家也可以看到，说从去年下半年开始，我们在这个促进平台生态健康和降低头部消费集中度方面呢，已经做出了非常重要而且实质性的变革。这样的变革从今年年初开始呢，已经开始发挥这个积极的作用。那么相信在一个新的政策环境下吧，能够更加健康稳定的发展。
More specifically, with regards to the policy changes you mentioned in the live streaming space, as a matter of fact, that's something that we've been closely monitoring since the beginning of last year, since the beginning of 2020. As you guys can see, during the second half of last year, we've actually made very, very important and significant structural reform to make sure that our company ecosystem stays healthy, and to reduce the reliance on the top spenders. And since the beginning of the year, such structural reform has already been showing positive effects to our ecosystem as well as our business. We believe that it is going to help our live streaming business to continue to develop in a healthy and steady way in the new policy environment. Operator, I think that concludes our conference call today. We're ready to close. Thanks everyone for joining our conference call today. We'll see you next quarter.
Thank you. That concludes our conference for today. Thank you for your participation. You may all disconnect your lines now. Thank you.